Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Underdog Podcast, where we talk to the most successful people who were at one point the undervalued, underestimated, overlooked underdogs of society who have now made a name for themselves and become a top dog. This is your host, Andrew Gross, and welcome to episode 1 of Underdogs. And I am excited to start this podcast. I feel like we're going to get a lot of good people in here to talk to, a lot of good people with great backstories and a lot of adversity that they've had to overcome and succeed to get to where they're at now. So this first episode is mostly going to be about myself, your host, just as a little bit of a backstory to get you all familiar with me and be able to familiarize yourself so you understand who I am going forward and what the podcast is going to be about, and just make a little bit more sense to all you guys who don't know me for when we interview people later on. So my whole childhood and my whole life has been about baseball, and this podcast is no way going to be just a sports podcast. We are going to be interviewing all kinds of people from all around the world, all types of jobs. You name it. If you've had to overcome something and succeed in something, I'd love to have you on the show. But in terms of myself, baseball has been my life, and that's where my whole story has come from. So that's what I'll tell you guys a little bit about today. So I grew up in Chandler, Arizona. I was born and raised. I have a family of 4. One younger sister named Kate, mom Lydia, and a dad Elliot. And yeah, just born and raised there, spent 22, 23 years of my life before moving out. And yeah, I grew up playing baseball my whole life. That was my dream, my love, my passion was baseball all the time growing up. And it still is. Thankfully, I get to keep playing it right now. But I started playing in the year 2000, and I was about 4 years old. And I remember my parents signed me up for a club, or not a club team, a t-ball group of kids. You know, they show up, hit the ball off the tee, not know which way to run. They run to third instead of first. They hit the ball and just stand there. They let the ball roll past them to the outfield while they're playing with butterflies, that kind of stuff. But I was very grateful that my family somehow chose the one coach that I had in t-ball that ended up coaching me all of my childhood until I was about 13 years old. His name was Rusty Stewart, and big shout out to Rusty Stewart. I mean, he was a great coach for teaching me the basic fundamentals of baseball and also the attitude on how you're supposed to play. He's a big reason why I am coachable right now, why I think I've made it so far. And, that's a big thank you to him and also my parents for somehow finding that as a first team to go play for. So I grew up playing t-ball and then went from t-ball to coach pitch and then coach pitch to machine pitch, which I don't even know if they have machine pitch anymore. And then machine pitch straight into kid pitch. And, that was probably the most beneficial thing. I went straight into pitching off of a mound by the time I was about 8 or 7. And that's really where I started to fall in love with pitching. I remember I used to use like a big old 13-inch glove, a 13-inch softball glove, when I was a little 8-year-old kid pitching off of a mound in my little Rec Spec goggles. It looked pretty funny, but it is what it was. We used what we had. And so I've been a pitcher all my life. Also, Coach Rusty, he told me the importance of being able to play more than one position. So I played third, short, second, first, caught a majority of my life growing up, and played the outfield as well, even though I wasn't the fastest. But that being said, I had a great childhood, not completely focused on baseball. It was more like a fun thing to do in my parents' eyes. In my eyes, obviously, I was a little bit more serious, taking where I am now. But to my parents, they did a really good job of prioritizing growing up as a child the right way and making sure that I have a childhood outside of just athletics and making sure I get real-world experience along with what I was getting through baseball and in the U.S. We did a lot of traveling outside the U.S. as well, which helped me gain perspective on the world, which helped. But aside from that, baseball is still a big focus of mine, whether they knew it or not. And it was a dream then, and it's still a dream now that I get to keep playing it. And going from club ball into junior high, into high school, and so on, it remained a dream. So after I got done playing club ball, I went to junior high. And when I tell you that my junior high was the type of junior high that had to go find kids out of a dark alley, hitting rocks with broom handles to come and play on the baseball team, that's how bad we were. Like, this was a first year ever junior high, first year ever junior high, and that meant that there was basically no athletic ability at that junior high whatsoever. And growing up in Arizona, that's something I wasn't used to. But I went to Chandler Traditional Junior High, which was a preparatory academy for high school, to prepare you for high school. So most of the students that went there were academically focused, as was I. My parents made sure I went there for academics, not for athletics. And I played pretty much every sport there that I could, because I just love sports too. And along with playing volleyball, basketball, baseball, flag football, which we had in junior high. I don't know, some places have tackle football now. But I played, quarterback. I was a pitcher, catcher, point guard, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I tell you, that was the first time I really ever experienced adversity in athletics. When I played baseball, we would lose every game. I would pitch. They'd hit a ground ball. My defense would make the play. We'd go hit. Everybody would get out except for a couple guys that played club ball. When I played basketball, I remember there was one game where we lost like 40-3, and I scored the only points somehow in like the last 10 seconds of the game. And flag football is a quarterback, and it's like you couldn't throw a pass without getting intercepted, or absolutely no idea what was going on. So that was the kind of junior high I had. Not really much of an athletic preparatory academy to head into high school, more of an academic for sure. But the high school that I went on to attend was Chandler High, literally right across the street from my junior high school. And coming from a junior high that was a first year and second year, so 7th and 8th grade, those are the first 2 years that school was ever a school. I went to Chandler High, and that was a school of about 3,000 to 4,000 students at the time, back in 2012. And they had no problem picking any types of athletic kids they wanted. I mean, they're a national championship winning football team, or state winning football team, the state winning track team, all that kind of stuff. They're competitors every year. So I had a little bit more work cut out for me. Still, I was really, really small. I mean, I tell you small, like, I was like pushing 5'4" maybe, and not even 100 pounds. I mean, I was tiny. I was like a fragile little girl, kind of tiny. And so I went into my freshman year still a catcher. Maybe looking back on it, I should have tried to pick something else based off my size, but that's what I knew, so I did that and I pitched. But going into freshman year, I remember played for one coach, Jeff Tallman, and he had his ways and I had my ways, but everybody made the team freshman year. So I made the team my freshman year just because that's the way it was. I mean, everybody makes it, so everybody made it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to play. And that was just the start to my high school. And I did just that. I didn't play very much at all. I remember some of my teammates, one in particular, Hayden Derkowitz. I remember he was getting on the coach one day because we were best friends, and he knew I was a catcher, and he didn't like that I wasn't playing, and he was kind of the all-star player on the team at the time. So, he kind of got my back and stood up for me and got in the coach's face. And that was just an awesome move. As a 14-year-old kid, that's tough to do to any adult, but mad respect for Hayden for doing that for me, and we're still friends to this day for sure. But, freshman year came and went, not really much to remember. And sophomore year coming into it, different story. I mean, you got to make JV or varsity. And if you don't make either one of those, you're cut. It's not a guaranteed spot, obviously. So going into sophomore year, still small, 5'6", maybe 110, 115 pounds at the most. Sophomore year, still as a catcher, I guess, third base, pitcher. Pitcher is probably my biggest shot of making it, but really I didn't have much of a shot at all, and this is where it first really hit me as cut time came along, and I got cut, and that was probably the single worst day of my life up until that point. I remember getting in my little blue truck that I got and driving away from the field, and I remember I had some tears in my eyes, and I drove past my mom and pulled up next to the side of her, and she asked me if I made the team or not. I just rolled the window up and drove home, and man, when I got home, nobody was home. I grabbed a baseball bat out of the storage or trash or wherever it was out of the side yard, and man, I beat that baseball bat up. Like, I dented it, cracked it, smashed it, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I was mad, but my parents got home, and I told them the news, and obviously they weren't too thrilled about it either, but again, they weren't the type of family that was athletically focused, so they thought I'd just get past it, kind of, go along my business, do my thing, but that's not really how I worked. I wanted to keep working at it, and I knew that I wanted to keep playing, but I didn't know how I would make the team again. So one thing big was, being 5'6", maybe 110 pounds, was working out, and I had no idea how to work out. And my dad, he was a military guy. He was in the Navy, a pilot, worked out on cruise ships, probably some of the most brutal working out conditions you can probably think of. And he kind of took me to the gym and was like, this is how you're going to work out. And he was huge. He's a huge guy. Like, used to bench like 405, stuff like that. And he showed me how to work out. And from that sophomore year, that helped me out so much. I mean, I was in the gym with him all the time. I mean, father-son lifts, doing stuff like teaching me how to bench right, squat right, curl right, all that kind of stuff. Use all the machines they had. So that kind of really set me up for the beginning of my Michael Jordan story on my way back from being cut. So sophomore year, I played golf too. That's the other thing I did. I played golf instead because I got cut, played golf. And yeah, I didn't have that good of a year. But then junior year came around, and my mentality was a different way. I mean, it was a lot less joking around. I'm not saying that I didn't take it seriously the first time, but it was more, I'm going to do this because this is my dream. I know where I can be. I know my heart's in it. So I went into junior year knowing what I can do. I wasn't a catcher. I knew I wasn't going to be a catcher. So I decided to focus my energy on pitching and playing third base, which is what I was kind of good at. Couldn't really hit ever, so that might have been a struggle. But going into junior year, new coaches, that helped out a little bit. He was actually a great coach for me, not just because I made the team that year, but also because he was very into baseball and loved the game as well. But he noticed how much I worked, how hard I worked, decided to give me a shot on JV, not even on varsity. I mean, varsity would have been nice. All my friends were on varsity, but I was on JV, stuck with the sophomores, the guys that are younger than me. That's kind of how it's been all my life too. But JV, didn't have a problem with it. Happy I made the team. Can't be mad at it after getting cut the last year. So going into JV year, I was a hitter, a third baseman, and a pitcher. I played not super often. I played third base occasionally. I remember I got a couple games at shortstop, and I pitched a little bit more occasionally than I played the field. But then I remember the playoffs came around for varsity, and I got called up to the varsity team for playoffs and basically got to warm up in the bullpen as the game was going on, as we were losing the game in the playoffs. And that was about as much as my junior year went. Didn't really play, didn't have any numbers, didn't really do good. that kind of stuff. So all in all, not a good junior year. Senior year comes around, senior year is varsity or nothing. So by that time, I had grown a lot. I was like probably pushing 6 feet, but I was still probably honestly like 150. So super thick, skin and bones by that point too. But senior year came around. My coach had a whole year of understanding me as a player and decided that I was just going to be a pitcher only. First time in my life I could designate myself as a PO. So I kind of took that seriously and decided to go all in on pitching. And that year, when I tell you it didn't work out, it really didn't work out. I mean, I have always had dreams of playing college baseball, and the only thing I could probably do at the end of that year was send hopeful emails out to schools that would maybe give a shot to some nobody kid that, had a 1 in a billion chance of making it to the college. But I pitched probably 9 innings and had like a 10 ERA or more probably. And by the end of the year, I was spamming emails to everybody I could find. I mean, I remember I was close to going to like New Mexico Military Institute and all these other schools that just would have been an absolute hell to go to. And just because it was baseball and that's what I wanted to do. And I even went to like some camps, like a Grand Canyon University camp that you have to pay for, an ASU camp you have to pay for, just in hopes of being able to get noticed by some scouts that were there. But, in the end, it all works out, somehow, based off if you have the heart in it or not. But my old friend Hayden Derkowitz from freshman year, from standing up for me to the head coach, he was the all-star player, went on to go play at Yavapai Community College. And I realized that I didn't really know where I was going to go. Didn't hear back from anybody. But I spammed a ton of emails to Yavapai College because I knew Hayden was going there. I knew he was one of my friends. And they agreed to let me practice with them. So not even a walk-on spot, not a team spot, not a scholarship. They just wanted me to practice with them. And they were very reluctant. Later I figured out that they did not want me there at all. But I went up to the school. I remember I took my unofficial visit, more just like a pain in the ass to the coaches up there. And I got to go meet them and go look at the school. And I remember I was with my dad, and he said, hey, like, here's the deal. Like, if you don't make the team, are you going to like going here? And I was like, man, I haven't really thought about it like that, but, I mean, this place is beautiful. It's nice. Like, yeah, I'd like to go here. And he's like, all right, cool. So, yeah, I ended up going up there and practicing with the team. I was throwing overhand, and I was probably throwing 75 miles an hour, 76 miles an hour, and had arm problems, just getting lit up, like guys hitting bombs off me, just not a good time at all. Had no off-speed stuff or anything. And then one day, like 2 weeks until cuts, one of my buddies now, Jojo Romero, we were playing catch in the outfield, and I was just like messing around and decided that I wanted to throw some sidearm. And I was just slinging them to him. And then he was like, hey, Jerry Dawson, that was our pitching coach at the time, JD. Big shout out to him. He's still doing that up there at Yavapai, volunteering every year, which is amazing. Has a true love for the game. All-time wins, most wins in Arizona as a high school coach too, by the way. Coach at Chaparral as a head coach there for a lot of years. But, yeah, Jerry Dawson came over to me and JoJo, and he was like, hey, man, let's get you on a mound, see what that looks like off of a mound. So I was throwing sidearm and over the top, doing like kind of a combo thing, and we stepped in a live at-bat situation, and I was doing both, throwing over the top and sidearm, and I was getting shelled over the top, and I wasn't really getting hit from sidearm. And after that, they were like, all right, you're not throwing over the top anymore. You're going to be a sidearm pitcher. So I had to do a little bit of thinking, because I've never had any type of training on how to throw like that, except for messing around in the pool when you're a kid, throwing those squish balls at each other. But Yeah, I had to put in some work and figure out how to do that real quick with about 2 weeks till cuts. And there was one other kid on the team that was a sidearmer, and I was able to beat him out and take his job and make the team. So after all of that, after getting cut sophomore year, being on a losing junior high, pitching 10 innings as a senior in high school, spamming emails to all of these different schools, and then eventually just following one of my friends up to high school or to junior college. That was the breaking point in my career where I first switched to sidearm. And during that year, I remember I had my first start over at CSN, College of Southern Nevada, where we had a little preseason tournament that we would always play up there every year. And our coach, Coach Kugel, Ryan Kugel, he was one of the best coaches I've ever had. That was another great choice going to Yavapai. Not a choice, it was a great idea, I guess, going to Yavapai. And then later figuring out how good of a coach and coaching staff we had there. But he gave me the start in a game, and that was my shot, And I ended up pitching 6 innings, either 5 or 6 innings, something like that, and giving up no runs, only 1 hit, and a couple strikeouts. And I remember after that game, our coach Ryan Kugel, he came up to me and we had a little team meeting, and he was like, "Hey, listen up, guys." He's like, "I never usually do this, but I'm giving out a team ball today." And junior college, these guys aren't kids; they're 17, 18 years old. And he was like, "I usually don't do this, but I'm giving out a team ball, and I'm giving it to Andrew." And he had some emotion in his voice. He told me he was proud of me, from going as a walk-on, basically a practice squad guy, to making the team and then pitching 6 innings my first outing. And to put it short, I mean, I ended up throwing 75 innings that year from 10, my senior year of high school. So my arm had some work to do, but luckily I stayed healthy. One of the best teams I ever played for, closest group of guys. Junior college, 100%, way to go, in my opinion. Biggest recommendation I could have if you're in a good state for junior college baseball. But we played good competition, wood bat, true reads off the bat. Just a grind. It's a grind of a season. And we were able to make it into the ACCAC playoffs for our conference that year, and we ended up winning. So then from there we went to the regionals, which were in, I forget. They were somewhere in Colorado. But we went to they were in Colorado, and we went up there, and I remember we won our regionals too on a walk-off grand slam by Dylan Enweiler in the last game of the playoffs to beat a team that was having their last year as a program. So kind of a downer for them, but a positive for us. And then we went on to Grand Junction, Colorado, and played in the Division I JUCO World Series. And I pitched in either 3 or 4 out of the 6 or 7 games we played in the JUCO World Series. And we lost our first game that we played in the JUCO World Series, or maybe it was the second. Either way, it was one of the first 2. And we had to come back and through the losers bracket, beat every single team that we played, and to get to San Jacinto, who was like a beast of a team from Texas. I mean, they were in the World Series every single year. They were just crushing everybody. They had tons of draft picks, tons of major league guys now. But we ended up playing them, and my buddy Jojo Romero, who's now a big leaguer for the Phillies, he ended up going complete game with like 150 pitches or something crazy like that. Left me drying out in the bullpen, ready to warm up. Been warming up for 4 innings, ready to go in, but there was no pulling that guy. He's a psycho. So we ended up winning the Junior College World Series my first year in college as a freshman, as a walk-on, coming off of getting cut and throwing 10 innings my senior year. So I could not have been luckier to choose a school and make the team and throw 75 innings on a championship winning team. And that is really what put me on the map. So following that year, my sophomore year was kind of a little bit of a downer year. We didn't have as good of a team, but it was still fun. We made the playoffs, ended up losing in our Arizona playoff bracket, so we didn't really make it that far. But my first year in Grand Junction put me on the map with schools to get recruited for Division I's. And I remember a couple minutes ago when I was talking about how I did a couple camps when I was desperate to try to pick a team, find a team to play for. I ended up doing a camp for Grand Canyon University. And I remember out of all 200, 300 guys that were there at Grand Canyon doing that camp they paid for, they picked out one guy to talk to. And that wasn't even guaranteed. I don't even know what happened with that. But fast forward to, a year later, two or 3 years later, when I have 90 innings under my belt and a junior college national championship, Grand Canyon comes along, and they're the first team to offer me. And I couldn't tell you how excited I was to get an opportunity just from anywhere to play, much less a school like that. And so that just took me on a little adventure, and I went on to visit and tour a couple other schools. I toured New Mexico State, ended up choosing University of Texas Arlington in the Sun Belt Conference, Division I. So I just fell in love with that program and the coaches and the pitching coach and everything that they valued there, and on all the facilities they had were really nice. And so I went on to UTA, obviously a little bit different, a little bit more business style, 44,000 students coming off of about 5,000 in junior college. So they're more in it to, represent the school instead of just more of a grind. So it was a little bit different. I had to get used to it. My junior year, I had a little bit of a tough year. Wasn't really where I wanted to be. Had a 3.9 ERA. Had 31 innings pitched, 20 walks, 21 strikeouts. So not very many strikeouts. And then realized that, I was like, this is hard. This isn't a joke. This is Division I. They're using metal bats now, not wood. So this is hard. Or harder than it was, and they're obviously better hitters. So that year ended with not much to prove of myself, and towards the end of the year, my coach was like, "Hey, have you ever thought of summer ball?" And I'm like, "To be honest, coach, I had no idea there was summer ball. I was still a kid in my head. I had no idea how any of this worked. So I was like, what is that?" And they showed me a team called Thunder Bay, the Thunder Bay Border Cats in the Northwoods League, which turned out to be one of the better leagues you could play in. Besides the Cape, and I know Alaska's up there too. But I went to go play in the Northwoods League for Thunder Bay, which was the worst team in that whole league, and we were the only team in Canada. So we were freezing, we were across the border, so every time we had to travel, which was twice a week, we had to go across the border, usually at 2, 3 in the morning, and get out of the bus, stiff as a board from sleeping on the floor, stand up, go into customs, show our passport and our visa, or passport for getting into the U.S., visa for getting back into Canada, and they would let us through and we get back on the bus. And when I tell you, I thought junior college was a grind, it does not hold a light to what I experienced in Thunder Bay. I mean, I tell you, they put us in host families. We were there for 3 months. My host family, they fed me pizza the first day they were there, and they fed me wings at their nephew's birthday party a month and a half later, and they did not feed me one other time besides then. And more than half the time, I rode a bike a good 2 miles. And let me put it this way: the bike chain was not completely on the gears, and I fixed it a ton of times. And I had to ride that bike 2 miles to the field almost every day to eat at an A&W, which is chicken strips and root beer, not good food for you when you're a Division I athlete, and then go play a game and eat stadium food after. That was my whole life for 3 months, and traveling a good number of hours, whether it's 8 to 15, probably, because we were the only team in Canada. So we had a lot of traveling to do. But that year was the most beneficial year I've ever had up to that point. I figured out how I needed to play, what my mechanics were. I really dialed it in because I had no idea, what to do. I didn't know if I was supposed to have a leg lift, what I was supposed to do with my arm, whether it was sidearm pitching. I knew I had some idea, but not a very finely tuned idea yet. So that year in Thunder Bay, I was their closer, and I had a really good time. I mean, I had a 3.8 ERA, so a little bit better than my junior at UTA, but I played in 26 games and threw 39 innings in 3 months. And yeah, and I just was able to tune in my stuff, had a lot less walks, a lot more strikeouts, so I was able to figure out my stuff. And senior year, I came back to UTA, and this was the year that it changed my life for sure. I came into the year very confident because I have figured out all of my mechanics in Thunder Bay, and I went into the year and I started off hot. We opened up in Corpus Christi, and I got my first save, or I guess second save of my UTA career, but it was the first of that year. And I went on to be the team's closer that year and record 17 saves that year in 46 innings pitched and 36 games. Or no, sorry. Yeah, 17 saves in 36 games. And that was a school record and a Sun Belt. I held the Sun Belt record for that year, like the all-time Sun Belt record for that year, and I forget, I was like 4 or 5 saves away from all-time record in all of Division I baseball. But I was given second team awards, second team all-conference awards at UTA, along with an All-American, along with like a third team All-American vote, along with like a third team All-American award. And that was really the first year where I've got any kind of pro attention from scouts. And I got like the A's, the Cubs, the Giants, talked to a couple guys. So I was looking forward to the draft after the season. And the draft came along, and I'm sitting there with my computer, ready to go, looking forward to it, and 10 rounds go by. Obviously didn't expect to get drafted in the first 10 rounds. 20 rounds go by. I'm like, all right. 30 rounds go by. I'm like, all right. I thought I was going to get picked somewhere between 20 and 30, but 10 rounds left. Like, here we go. And we got to about the 33rd round, and the Tampa Bay Rays called me, and they were a team I did not talk to all year. He says, hey, sorry we didn't get out there to see you, but we really like your stuff. There's no promises, but we're going to try to pick you up. If we don't take you in the draft, we're going to try to take you as a free agent. And I'm like, all right, cool. And at this point, I've been training for Marine Corps Officer Candidate School for like 4 or 5 years. And right at the end of my senior year, I finally got accepted into Marine Corps Officer Candidate School. And I was set to ship out to Officer Candidate School in about 3 weeks from then. And so I was sitting there thinking, if I don't get drafted, I'm going to go to Marine Corps Officer Candidate School. I'm not going to take free agency because I have this set up. And I knew how hard of a road it was to take free agency, without being a draft guy. But 30, 35, 36, 37th round went by. 38th round, they drafted a guy whose name was almost exactly to mine. And then my name popped up. 39th round, 1,178th overall. Got it tatted on me and everything. Most proud moment of my life. Immediately said yes, I was going to take it. So went out, smoked cigars with my dad. Couldn't care less that I was a 39th rounder. You would have thought that my reaction now would have been a first rounder. But yeah, everyone was happy for me. I got so many text messages in the first 10 minutes, my phone about died. But yeah, I got a call about a week later after I had to call the Marine Corps Officer Candidate guy and tell him, hey, I got to take the draft. This is my dream. If I don't do this, I'm going to regret it. And that's a big thing that I hold by today. Like, I've always had a gut feeling inside me that what I think that I should do is what I do, and that's what I ended up doing. So I said, hey, Like, I got to do this. So I turned down the Marine Corps Officer Candidate School and went to the Tampa Bay Rays, and they called me and told me I'm going up to Hudson Valley to play in the New York Penn League short season single A rookie ball, where I was also their closer up there, and hopping straight into it, facing pro hitters. I remember my first appearance was up in Vermont against the Lake Monsters, and I was nervous. Long run from the outfield, running from right center field, and I come in there, not older stadium, dark lights, and I remember I got like 3 or 4 strikeouts in 2 innings, and I was just like, man, I can do this. Like, that was the first moment, like, I got this. Like, I know who I am. I can do this. And had a great year, great host family. One of the best experiences of my life, too, with that. Linda and Mike and Christopher and everybody, up there. Those are my host family. And Alexis, they were all just a great family to be around, and they took me around, really took me under the wing. I remember went to the grocery store, and they were basically forcing me to buy stuff, which is the opposite of my host family in Thunder Bay. They wanted me to have all types of food. I remember they were like, do you want this pineapple? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I guess I kind of like pineapple. And they're like, oh, do you like it? We're going to get it for you. Like, really pressuring it. And it was funny just looking back on it. And we still keep in contact. And, as soon as I can get tickets for them to get to any of my games now, I for sure will. We're still really close. But that year in Hudson Valley, I ended up with a 3.4 ERA in 20 games with 29 innings and 31 strikeouts. And that was my real first appearance in pro ball, and I loved it. I loved every second of it. Ready for more. Come around 2019. Ready for camp. Pitching a bullpen. Pitching a live at-bat. Looked good. Then the team meeting came around. We're all sitting in the big meeting room. Hey, we got this weird thing called COVID. Coronavirus that's going around. We don't know what's happening with it, but we're going to send you guys home for a couple of days. We're going to expect you guys to be back in about a week or so keep throwing. We'll just keep you up to date on what's going on. And, about a year and a half later, when I hadn't played another pro game, come into spring training, 2020. Not even 2020, 2021. And going to spring training, and had a horrible spring training. Had like 8 runs allowed in like 4 innings. Didn't know what was going on. Had no feel for anything. Then I remember talking to a guy, Marty Demerit, Dog is what we call him, and he showed me a simple trick of like what I was doing in my arm action to help me command and control my pitches a little bit better. And it changed immediately once I got out of spring training. So I ended spring training horribly. Worked with him the last couple of days, and they assigned me to the Charleston River Dogs low A team in Charleston, South Carolina for the 2021 season. And I remember first outing was against Myrtle Beach, and I gave up a couple runs. Didn't really have my stuff. And then after that, I did good, and then went on to set a league record of 31 straight scoreless innings that year. So obviously, not giving up a run in 31 straight innings, that's what they pay you for. And they might not pay you a lot, but they pay you for it. So I could care less about the money. It's more about getting a job done for me. So that was by far the best year I've ever pitched in my life. Great stadium, great fans, great atmosphere. Along with Hudson Valley, both places were amazing places to play. But Charleston was just a cool place, great group of guys. Our coach was Blake Butera. He was our coach in Hudson Valley as well. And our pitching coach was R.C. Lichtenstein. And he really helped me develop how to understand like pitch tunneling, pitch sequencing, pitch development, all that kind of stuff. And it was really able to hone in my talents and my crafts a little bit that year. And I ended up with a 1.6 ERA in 33 games played, with 59.2 innings and 59 strikeouts with only 6 walks. So that was the year that I kind of put myself on the map. Best numbers in our organization, except for one guy, Mr. Colby White, who had an outstanding year as well. Made it all the way up to AAA, almost probably had a shot at cracking the big leagues too, but mad props to him for doing that. Ended my year in Charleston, and it was a ride. I mean, ended up going up to Kinston, playing the Rangers, won the championship. Couldn't be more proud of being able to win a championship with those group of guys. And we had probably 50, 60 guys on the team because guys getting moved up and down, getting hurt, that kind of stuff. And it was just so much fun. So much pride for me being able to come from where I was and being able to make it to the minor leagues and win a championship in low A. And I tell you, like, I'm not done yet. Like, I'm still looking forward. I know I only played in low A this year, but each year I set my sights a little bit high. Like last year, I set my sights for high A and try to break that out of spring training. And this year, I'm gonna set my sights for double A. And you bet through all of spring training, I'm gonna be trying to gun for double A spot like you wouldn't believe. So, come first day of spring training, I'm gonna be working towards that. You know, trying to figure out guys I can beat out, trying to pitch better, outwork the next guy I can find. So, that's about my story. Been a lot of adversity, a lot of things to overcome, but people like my family, my friends, every single person that's took a chance on me, coming from the coaches at Yavapai that later told me that they were debating on which one was going to have to cut me because they didn't like me, but they loved me as a person. Those coaches, the coaches at UTA, for taking another shot on me, you know, not having a good second year in junior college. They took a shot on me and ended up breaking the school record for saves my senior year. And then obviously the Rays, you know, taking a shot on me. 39th round, it's always how it's been. Last pick, or second to last round, but I've always been pretty much the last pick in every single thing that I've did, or every single thing that I've done. But that's just how it's been, and I have no intention of that continuing. But if that's how it's going to be, that's how it's going to be, and I'm going to keep showing people that I deserve to be valued more than I am, and that's basically what this podcast is about. We are going to be finding people that are just like me, you know, the undervalued people that are underestimated, overlooked, and they're the underdogs of society that make a name for themselves and become a top dog. So make sure you guys tune into the next episode. It's going to be a fun ride, and we're going to find some people that are going to motivate guys and girls like you to reach your goals in life no matter what adversity you might have faced. I'm your host, Andrew Gross, and until next time, I'll see you underdogs.